Director Todd Looby.
Thank you very much, everybody.
So let's talk about Lollywood a little bit first before we get into Be Good. Can you just give us a little history on what took you out there, what the mission was, and how you ended up working with these kids?
So I went out in basically it was the fall of 2009 to make a documentary about this boarding school that was founded right after the Liberian Civil War in 2003, and they want to do a promotional doc about the boarding school. Is this better if I keep it like this? Yeah. And so while I was there, I also wanted to make a narrative short, and that narrative short wound up being it was a short called Son of None that I showed at Slam Dance 2011. And but while I was making that short, I was auditioning kids to see who could act and whatnot. And we made like this we put together like a little show. Anyway, I wound up editing it, showing the kids on one of the nights that I was there, and they loved it. And Edwin, who was the lead and the head guy in Lollywood, came to me and said, "I want to make another show with the big kids. Do you mind if you film it?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." I mean, just like, okay, we'll meet tomorrow. You tell me what the idea is, and then we'll film it the following day. So 24 hours later, the kid comes to me, and he has this whole cast of 30 people, all cast. Everyone knew their lines, and it was a really elaborate story. And I was like, wow. So I'm like, okay, let's cut this and this, but we'll meet out in the field tomorrow, and we'll shoot it. So I go out the field tomorrow, and where there was fallow farm field, literally there was an African village there. So somehow after school, they built this entire African village, and then we shot the whole thing in 3 hours, and it was just hilarious. Like I just couldn't believe what I saw, what they could put together in that little time.
I think it's a real, again, like I've done this for a few years now, first in Austin and now here in Victoria. I noticed that a lot, like this just massive explosion of creative energy that comes out of people who are really driven by independent film. And what is that? I mean, why is that, do you think?
I don't know. I don't know if it's independent film or whatever, but I don't know. I think obviously me being a filmmaker, I think I've had that for a while, but even people that I talk to a lot that don't do it or never really seriously thought about doing it, sort of always had it in the back of the head as I wonder if I could do that. Anyone who loves film was, I'd like to someday maybe do that, or think about it. And it's just, film is just such a universal art form that is so beloved by so many people that it really attracts people to want to give it a shot. And then when you see stuff that's maybe like Be Good, where it's very stripped down, and you see something like that, if you're someone who's never done it, you're like, well, maybe I could do that. If I have a few friends that are interesting people, and that guy has a camera, and they just sit around in an apartment and talk, shit, well, I can do it. So I think the more, and that speaks to your point about independent film, the more independent film is out there, the more people, I think that they can do it and try it. So, and especially in Edwin's situation with these Nollywood movies, and you got a little glimpse from that the Nigerian soap opera that I put in the movie, but that's what all these Nollywood productions are like. Very, very generic, like very cheesy, corny things. So if you're a kid in Liberia and you have a camera, you're like, well, we could do what these schmucks are doing, But in Nigeria, it's like a huge industry, by African standards. So yeah. So it kind of makes you think, well, I could do it, and why not if I get the opportunity? So I just happened to be there with a camera, and he's like, as soon as Edwin saw that,
he was inspired.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
awesome.
I also should say, while I was making Nollywood, I saw the trailer of Zombie Girl, and I don't know if Aaron's still here, but Aaron is a judge here. Is he technically a judge?
Yeah, he's a juror here, and he's a programmer at Slam Dance.
So yeah, he made this movie Zombie Girl, and it was about this. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong, Aaron. I haven't seen the whole movie, but I saw the trailer, and it inspired me to make Lollywood, because it's a similar thing about a girl who's a teenage girl in America making this independent zombie movie. So that convinced me to try it with a 15-year-old Liberian war orphan.
It wasn't funny until you did the face.
Why
Does
not?
anybody have any questions about Lollywood before we move on and talk about Be Good? All right. Orgil, you're wanted in the green room. Back here. We're trying to have an award ceremony meeting and you're just sitting around like you're some freaking patron. You're a juror. You're on the salary, buddy. Get to work. It's freaking unbelievable. Can't get good help in this town. I met Jeff 4 years ago at my very first film festival in Strasbourg, France, and in fact, about 50% of my jury, or the friends of this jury, are all from my very first film festival, and I've harvested some really amazing relationships out of that. Thanks, buddy.
And I'd like to say something too before we continue, and I'll take any questions. I have DVDs of my last movie out here that I need to get rid of, so please take them. Many people like the movie, so you may as well, and they're free if you want to donate something great, but
Are they
feel
out there
free
on
to
the
take them.
table?
What's that?
Oh, you got them. Okay.
Oh, there's a few on the table, but there's some here,
Listen,
so
when we finish the Q&A, take them out and put them on the table because, guys, I'd like for you guys to
if you wanna come
go
up.
out to the tables when we finish this Q&A, and please place your bids on those records. I know maybe you don't have a record player or whatever, but it goes to a really great cause, and it was a really great experience watching these local artists get to record albums and watch them go straight to vinyl records. And for those of you that didn't get to see that upstairs at the Gecko, it was a really cool experience, and I'm happy to say that we're going to bring Ted back for a month, probably next year sometime, and just do a special program for Never Records and have him record bands for about a month here in Victoria and record 30 to 50 live albums. So if you get a chance, please put a bid on those records on the table out there, and don't be afraid to give more than a record would ever be worth because it goes to a fantastic cause, which is CASA. So please do that. Let's talk about Be Good.
Be Good.
It's something did someone have a question about Lollywood?
Yeah, I did have a question about Lollywood.
All right, great.
When you screened the film to the young children, the overwhelming joy was just so cool. I mean, can you speak a little bit about that, and how and what that did for them?
Yeah, I mean, they loved it. I mean, they just basically laughed and jumped up, clapped for the. I mean, I should say that the whole movie, when we shot it, the way it's scripted, it's a good 55 minute movie. So I basically just cut together a really quick assembly of the whole thing that we shot, and they were just screaming the entire time, just laughing their heads off, and because there were so many characters that in each different part, a new character would come on. So every time they see themselves, they would just jump up and scream and laugh, and yeah. So they had a great time. It was very cool.
Are there any other questions for Lollywood? Okay, let's talk about Be Good. So you got Amy Simons. That's awesome.
Oh yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But
Amy was great.
But more importantly, I totally identified with this film. I felt like when it was over, I was like, oh man, it's too short. But as a filmmaker and a father, and you and I even talked about it when we told you I was a filmmaker, and you're like, what? You have 4 kids?
Yeah.
So is this you?
Yeah, I mean, this is the whole idea for the movie came about when I got back from Sundance 2011. That was like my last event as like just a full-time filmmaker, and then as soon as I got back, basically I had to take over the day-to-day child-rearing duties. My wife went back to work, and it was pretty cool for a while. But then there was this like 2-week period where, while I was doing that, I was working on this script. This book adaptation, and I just figured that the baby would sleep and then I could work and like it would be no big deal. But I knew she wasn't very much of a sleeper, but I thought I had the trick, and I didn't. So it was so I just felt like, and I knew that the right place for my wife to be was home. For everyone's sake, especially the babies, and I knew that I wanted, I was really interested in working, as I still am, and so I wanted to further my career, and I wanted to be the guy to take care of the family and stuff, and so I was in this situation where, I couldn't get ahead because I couldn't work on the projects that I was doing to sort of set me up in that position to be able to, make a living and hopefully provide for the family. So I wasn't able to do that because the, duties of fatherhood were so taxing. And at the same time, then I wasn't being a great dad because I was, thinking about work a lot too. So it just was this 2-week period where it was like, just kind of felt stuck. And yeah, and then during the time of confusion, I actually did give a guy like $15 outside of a Staples when I was in. It just totally pissed me off. So I'm like, this is a case in point of my life, or something, like that really stuck with me. And then I just said like, well, what if I was an idiot? And what if I had like no self-control? I would have totally chased this guy and done something really stupid. And for that, so that whole 2-week period, it just sort of came together for the idea for the script, and then I totally dramatized everything in my life to the 9th degree to make it interesting, because it wouldn't have been very interesting if it was just kind of my actual experience. So it's based on a lot of reality that happened for this 2-week period, but at the same time, there's so much fictionalized, and with Tommy Madden, the lead characters, he brought a totally different spin than me, into the role. So
I have a question. It's me. Hey. So then why didn't you play the guy? Why did you have somebody else play you?
Yeah, I was actually originally going to play the dad, but I thought, I thought it was a little too close, and I was a little bit worried about all the hats that I was wearing, because I was the producer, director, writer, father. It was shot in my apartment, and I just felt like with all those things going on and having to be in every scene, it probably wouldn't have worked well. Mm-hmm. Because I love acting, and I don't get a chance to act because I'm always behind the camera or editing or something. And then, so I had the idea, and I called Tommy about it maybe about a week or two before we started shooting. I'm like, do you want to do this movie? And he was totally into it, and he did it. So I'm like, okay. And my other buddy was going to play, TJ, who I played. And so then he dropped out, and I was like, well, I'm going to play TJ, because playing TJ was like awesome therapy, because it was someone totally different in a totally different situation than I was currently in at that point. So it was a ton of fun playing him.
The guy that you got was really amazing.
What'd you say?
The father was really amazing. Like,
yeah.
I totally believe that he actually was the father of that kid. He was. It almost seemed like was he in that situation at all, or?
No, he's just a fantastic actor. He's got no kids. He's 39. Thankfully, he just moved out to L.A. This spring to kind of give it a go, but give it a more serious go. But he's been in Chicago. I've known him, ever since I was a little kid. We're from the same neighborhood, went to the same high school, grammar school, and he's been kind of doing commercials now and again. And he was in my last feature, and he's just an awesome actor. He's just, that's how good he is. And he is, I should say, he's a uncle to a lot of kids. So he's been around a lot of kids, but he does none of his own. So that's how good he is.
Well, congratulations. It was great.
Thanks, man.
What do you have planned next?
Yeah, it's kind of weird. So project-wise, I've been adapting this book, and I have to say this because I'm in Texas, and I'm not in Texas often, but I'm adapting this a death row story set here. It's set in Livingston, but it's the book is called A Saint on Death Row, and that's the one I've been, I was working on for a long time. And it's written by this guy, Thomas Cahill, who's mostly a history writer. But there's a story about this kid who was executed in '04. It's just a really remarkable story about his transformation from being on the streets of Houston to his transformation on death row, and then meeting Desmond Tutu and starting this huge restorative justice initiative, and this big initiative on the death penalty and stuff. So really amazing story. So I'm working on that, and like I pretty much have a draft that's close to going out there. And then, so that's my African American kid on death row movie. And then I'm gonna start writing a script about a white bear trapper in Alaska.
Pretty much covers it.
Right. Makes a lot of sense. A lot of continuity there, right? So
A lot of breadth.
So yeah, that's it. And then I'm actually I'm going to be part-time the American, I guess the executive director of the boarding school in Liberia as well. So
Fantastic.
so I'm excited about that too. And I could tell you more about that like all day because these kids are just incredible and what's going on there is awesome. So if any of you want to support what's going on there, there's a lot of opportunities to do that, and I welcome you to do it because everyone that supports us is really gets something out of it. So,
You know, that's something I noticed that with working with kids, I got the opportunity to work at Trinity School this past summer, and we produced a little zombie movie, and we gave them a makeup class and sent them all home with a makeup kit, and kids ages 4 to 8th grade. And we kind of broke them up in 2 classes and did some iPod stuff with the younger kids and showed them how to use templates in iMovie. And Josh, one of our festival workers, helped out. And I think that it was really inspiring to me, and I think it's amazing like how quick the younger generation like picks up on this technology. I think it's really a great learning tool, and I was pretty inspired by watching those kids soak up all this stuff. So I'm sure out there it was really rewarding for you.
absolutely.
Are there any questions? Yes. Lisa. We were just waiting for your microphone.
This is actually about Lollywood. I was really captivated by that Edwin kid. Do you think is he gonna make it? Is he gonna be in more movies?
I'd love it. I mean, I think I'm gonna go out there in the fall, and by all means, I'm gonna, try to do something. Maybe, yeah. I mean, now that you mention it, like, I don't know, maybe try to do a fundraiser or something to get him a camera. I mean, he's an excellent student, and he's gonna be in college next year and stuff. So he's probably got to think about more sort of. I sound like a dad, but he's probably got to think of a more serious job than filmmaking. Yeah.
What's the website that was listed at the end of the film?
But I would love to foster that more because there is nothing going on in Liberia, production-wise, but it's so rich for material. I mean, if there's, most African countries are, but this one, like especially, is just such an untold story in Africa. I mean, Liberia was founded by freed American slaves, and every Liberian calls, they call the U.S. as their big brother, and their flag is, I don't know if I had a picture in there, but the flag is like identical, essentially, to the U.S. flag. So there's a huge connection between our countries that 98% of Americans have no clue exists, but to them, America's everything. So anyway, it's just such a really interesting country and really interesting history, and even the war and what's presently going on, and having the first female head of state in all of Africa. It's just, so I would love more stories to come out of Liberia and kind of have the Liberian follow what's going on in Rwanda.
Was the website listed at the end of the film, was that to support kids wanting to get into acting or film or theater?
Would you say at the end thing I said in there?
At the end of the film, it said Liberia.
Yeah, that was more or less just to to help them at the school.
Okay.
So not necessarily for that, but I mean, the more I show this film, the more I see how much interest is in them, in their artistic nature, which is very cool because they're very artistic as well. I mean, there's incredible painters there, there's incredible musicians, incredible singers, and they do have nice art programs there, but it would be very cool to actually foster that particular interest, film or acting, theater, something like that. So that's something that I will definitely help foster in my new role as executive director.
I would love to help you raise money for that kid to get a camera.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
Film
you. All right,
Exchange would couple with you on that and do a Rocket Hub campaign in a second. Darko is one of the creative consultants for Rocket Hub.
Really?
Yeah, that's how we raised our money for the Crossroads Awards. So
There
I
you
would
go.
love to couple with you and help you with our network to raise the money for that kid to get a camera. So let's
Awesome.
just,
Thank you,
work
Anthony.
on that right away.
Awesome. Yeah.
Cool.
Let's do it. Awesome.
In fact, I would almost just donate a camera.
Yeah. I mean, it's like
I mean, what is
If
it?
my
Like $700
DVX
bucks? Like really?
Yeah, I mean, literally, like, hopefully it'd probably be something that would, need tapes because I don't think they would have a lot of storage capability, but, and tapes are so cheap now that it could be some old DV camera that,
Really?
anything to let them, explore.
Yeah, I mean, when you have nothing and just to get anything is
So I
is something.
started, on just some crappy little DV camera. So
Do we have any more questions? Let me ask you one more. What was the most rewarding thing about making this film?
be
Be
good.
good.
Just the way it came together was really interesting. I think uh, we 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 went into production on a 6-page outline. Um, I literally, I kind of had this idea swirling around my head for a couple weeks. I finally, wrote like a 1-page treatment. A couple weeks later, 2 weeks later, I wrote a more extended outline, which was the 6-page outline. And then from that, I just started getting people on board with it. And then essentially, like a month later, we were basically shooting. And Joe Swanberg, who was in the film, who's a very prolific independent filmmaker from Chicago, he had one of his screenings at a theater in Chicago. One of his movies went to Sundance, and anyway, he was shown in Chicago. And then from that screening, I met some other filmmakers, and from that screening, all these people came together to make the film. Joe got me in touch with Amy. I had a phone conversation with Amy, and just from that phone conversation, she was in, and she's like, "Okay, we're shooting on June 20th. Okay, I'm acting in another movie. I'm directing my own movie, but okay, I'll be there on the 20th." And so literally, it's just sort of just really organically and quickly came together, without much. There was no pre-production at all, and it's just a testament to the people that we got involved. In getting Mike Gibisser as a filmmaker in his own right, but he shot the movie, and getting him on board, and having all these people like Joe and Amy and Frank Ross did the sound, who's another Chicago filmmaker and does very well, and just a really small group of people that just had a lot of experience making very low budget films, and just made the whole process no budget films without really scripts and stuff, and having them come together for basically just 2 weeks to shoot it. But it was kind of magical how we were actually able to pull it off. So very, very hard at the same time. So, but very rewarding in the fact that we actually did it, with nothing.
All right. We're going to take a 15-minute break so you guys can go and bid on these records, because we need your support for CASA. And then we're going to do our award ceremony. So please go grab yourself a drink at the concession out there. Please bid on these records. It goes to a great cause. We will close the bidding after the break when we come to the film festival, and then we'll let you know what we came up with for a donation for CASA, and we'll hand out the awards. Thanks a lot.